If I could go back to just 10 years before I retired, I wouldn't chase bigger goals. I'd build better habits, simple, quiet ones. I didn't need to reinvent myself. I just needed to slow down, breathe, and choose what mattered. These small daily choices gave me peace, clarity, and purpose. And now, I want to share the 25 habits that quietly changed my life so you can start building yours before it's too late. Habit 1. I made my mornings sacred. For most of my adult life, mornings felt like a race. The moment I woke up, I was already thinking about what needed to be done. I would check emails, scroll the news, and dive into the noise of the world before I even stood up. One day, I realized that I was starting each morning already feeling behind. So I made a small change. I decided to make my mornings sacred. I began waking up just 15 minutes earlier, not to do more, but to do less. I gave those first moments of the day entirely to myself. No phone, no talking, just silence, a warm drink, and a chair near the window. I didn't meditate or journal unless I felt like it. I simply sat with myself. This practice gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Starting the day quietly reminded me that I didn't have to rush through life. I could begin slowly on my own terms. This habit helped me listen to myself before the world got loud. If your mornings feel frantic or disconnected, try protecting a small space in them. It doesn't have to be long. Just a few minutes of stillness can change the direction of your whole day. Habit 2. I wrote down 3 things I was grateful for every day. I used to spend a lot of time thinking about what I hadn't achieved or what was still missing. I thought that was what drove improvement, but it also made me feel tired and sometimes even bitter. Then I started a simple habit. Every morning, I wrote down 3 things I was grateful for. Some days it was obvious: my health, my family, a safe place to live. Other days it was small: a good cup of coffee, a cool breeze, a smile from a stranger. At first, it felt like nothing more than a nice idea. But over time, it changed how I saw the world. Instead of noticing what I lacked, I began to notice what I already had. This shift didn't make my problems disappear, but it helped me handle them with a clearer mind and a softer heart. Gratitude grounded me. It made even ordinary days feel meaningful. If you're going through a hard season or just feel a bit stuck, I invite you to try this. Each day, take a minute to write down 3 honest things you're thankful for. It may not feel powerful at first, but it builds something deep, a quiet strength that carries you. Habit 3. I walked 20 minutes every day, no matter the weather. There was a time when I thought staying active meant following a workout plan or going to a gym, but I never enjoyed it, and I rarely stuck with it. Then I made one simple promise to myself. I would walk for 20 minutes every day, no matter the weather. I didn't need a goal. I didn't need fancy shoes. I just needed to move. At first, I walked around the block, then through a local park. Sometimes I went alone. Other times, I brought my dog or called a friend while walking. Rain or shine, I showed up for those 20 minutes. It became more than just physical exercise. It became a form of therapy. I began to notice things I had ignored for years. The way the light fell through the trees, the changing seasons, the rhythm of my own breathing. It reminded me that I was still part of the world, still connected. The benefits went beyond health. I felt more grounded, less anxious, and more alive. If you feel stuck or disconnected, try walking every day. Not to achieve something, but simply to return to yourself. Habit 4. I used Sunday evenings to check in with myself. The weeks used to fly by, one blending into the next. I was so busy getting things done that I never paused to ask how I was actually doing. Then I created a small Sunday habit. Every Sunday evening, I gave myself 10 to 15 quiet minutes to reflect. I asked myself 3 questions. What brought me joy this week? What drained me? And what do I need in the week ahead? This practice helped me step back from the noise and really listen to myself. I learned what mattered to me, what I needed to stop doing, and what I wanted more of. It wasn't about being perfect or productive. It was about being present and honest. Over time, I started making better choices. I said yes to things that filled me and no to things that didn't. I stopped living on autopilot. This check-in became a kind of weekly compass. If you've been moving through life without pause, I encourage you to try this habit. Make time each week to check in, not with your calendar, but with your heart. It may be the most important conversation you have all week. Habit 5. I started saying no without feeling guilty. For many years, I believed that saying yes to everyone made me a good person. I said yes to invitations, requests, and favors, even when I felt exhausted or overwhelmed. But deep inside, I was building quiet resentment. I felt drained and disconnected from my own needs. Eventually, I learned something that changed my life. Saying no, when done with kindness and clarity, is not selfish. It's healthy. I began practicing saying no when something didn't align with my energy or values. I didn't make excuses or over-explain. I just said, "Thank you, but I can't," and let that be enough. At first, it felt uncomfortable. I worried people would be upset, but something surprising happened. The people who truly cared about me understood and respected me more for it, and I began to respect myself more too. Saying no gave me back time, energy, and peace. It allowed me to say yes to what really mattered. If you struggle with overcommitting or putting others first at your own expense, I hope you give yourself permission to start saying no with love and without guilt. Habit 6. I started reading books instead of scrolling my phone. There was a time when I realized I had stopped reading. I was spending hours each day scrolling through my phone, news, emails, social media, and things I barely remembered afterward. I wasn't learning. I wasn't enjoying. I was just filling time. So I made a decision. Each day before I picked up my phone, I would read a book, even just 10 or 15 minutes. At first, it was hard. My attention span had shrunk. I was restless, but slowly something beautiful happened. My mind began to calm down. I could focus longer. I started to enjoy quiet again. The stories pulled me in. The ideas stretched my thinking. I remembered what it felt like to lose myself in a book and find myself there too. This habit gave me back something I didn't know I had lost: depth. If you feel distracted or overwhelmed by information, try this. Pick a book. Put your phone down. Give your mind something real to hold. A few pages each day is enough to start. Habit 7. I made one meaningful phone call each week. As I got older, I noticed how easy it was to drift apart from people I cared about. Not out of conflict, but out of life just moving on. We always said, "Let's catch up soon," but we never did. So I created a new habit: one meaningful phone call each week. I made a list of people I wanted to stay connected with: old friends, family members, neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years. And each week, I picked one name and made the call. Sometimes we talked for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. Sometimes we laughed. Sometimes we cried. What mattered most was that we connected voice to voice, not just through messages or posts. Over time, this habit brought friendships back to life. It healed old distances. It reminded me that relationships don't maintain themselves. They need time, intention, and effort. If you feel lonely or disconnected, this habit might surprise you. One call a week may not seem like much, but it's more than most people do, and it matters. Habit 8. I ate dinner at the table without any screens. For years, I ate dinner in front of a television. I barely tasted my food. I barely noticed the people around me. It was just something to get through. But one evening, I turned everything off. No TV, no phone, just a plate of food, a quiet room, and the people I loved. It felt strange at first. The silence was uncomfortable. But then something shifted. We started talking again, really talking. I began to enjoy the flavors, the warmth, the pause in the middle of the evening. Dinner became a moment of connection, not distraction. This habit brought rhythm and meaning back into my daily life. Whether I was eating with others or alone, the act of sitting down, being present, and giving the meal my full attention reminded me to slow down. If your evenings feel rushed or empty, try reclaiming dinner as a sacred pause. You'll be surprised how powerful it feels to simply eat with presence. Habit 9. I learned one new skill or hobby each month. For a long time, I believed learning was something you did when you were young. But one day I felt bored, like life had gotten too predictable. So I tried something new. I learned how to bake bread. The next month, I tried painting. Then I started learning Spanish. And on it went. I wasn't trying to become an expert. I just wanted to keep growing. This habit lit a spark inside me. Every month, I had something to look forward to. I watched myself struggle, improve, and even laugh at my mistakes. It reminded me that it's never too late to be curious. Learning didn't just exercise my being, it gave me joy. It brought me into new communities, helped me meet new people, and kept my spirit alive. If you feel stuck in routine, try learning something new. It doesn't have to be big or impressive. Just pick something that excites you and start. Growth is still possible at any age. Habit 10. I kept a joy jar on my kitchen counter. One day I read about something called a joy jar. The idea was simple. Whenever something small brought me joy, I'd write it on a slip of paper and drop it into a jar. A kind word, a beautiful sunset, a good laugh. I didn't expect much from it, but I decided to try. Over the months, the jar filled up. Then, on a day when I was feeling low, I opened it and began to read. Those little slips of paper reminded me that joy had never really left. It had just gone unnoticed. The act of writing things down made me more present. I started looking for joy everywhere because I knew I had a jar to fill. This habit gave me hope in hard times. It reminded me that even on the worst days, there's always something worth remembering. If you're struggling to feel lightness in your life, try this habit. A jar, some paper, a little intention. You'll be surprised how much good is already around you. Habit 11. I stopped working after dinner. For many years, my work didn't end when I left the office. I brought it home. Emails, projects, endless little tasks. Even after dinner, I'd sit with my laptop trying to get ahead. But I wasn't getting ahead. I was falling behind in my life. I wasn't resting. I wasn't connecting. I wasn't present. So I drew a line. No more work after dinner. That one boundary changed my evenings entirely. At first, I felt restless, like I should be doing something. But slowly, I began to enjoy the time. I read. I listened to music. I talked with my wife. I sat on the porch and watched the sky grow dark. It wasn't just about stopping work. It was about honoring rest. We're not machines. We weren't made to run all the time. If you feel like your days never truly end, consider this habit. Protect your evenings. Let them be slow. Let them be yours. Habit 12. I drank water. Before I had coffee. It sounds so simple, maybe even silly, but drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning, before my coffee, made a bigger difference than I expected. For years, I would wake up groggy and go straight to caffeine. I thought I needed it to function, but my body was dehydrated, not just tired, so I started each morning with a full glass of water. Within a few days, I felt more awake, more focused, and less tense. My joints felt better. My digestion improved. I still enjoy my morning coffee, but now it comes second. That small change reminded me that taking care of myself doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes the most basic things, like water, rest, or deep breaths, are the most powerful. If your mornings feel sluggish or your body feels off, try starting with water. One small glass, one quiet act of care. It's not just a habit. It's a message to yourself. I'm worth looking after. Habit 13. I took one digital Sabbath each week. I didn't grow up with screens, but somewhere along the way they took over. News, social media, emails, television. I was constantly plugged in. I noticed my attention span shrinking, my stress growing. My days felt noisy, so I decided to try something different. One day a week, usually Sunday, I unplugged completely. No phone, no television, no laptop. I called it my digital Sabbath. At first it was hard. I kept reaching for my phone without thinking, but slowly the silence became comforting. I read books. I took walks. I wrote letters. I cooked. I sat in the quiet and just let my mind breathe. This habit helped me return to myself. It reminded me that rest isn't just about sleep. It's about mental space. If you feel overstimulated or anxious, try one day offline each week. Your world won't fall apart. In fact, it might open up. Habit 14. I started writing real letters again. One day I found a box of old letters in the attic. Some from friends, some from family, some I had forgotten entirely. As I read them, I realized how much power a handwritten letter holds. So I began writing again. Not emails, not texts. Real letters with a pen and paper. I wrote to my children, my grandchildren, old friends, even a few people I needed to forgive. I didn't try to be poetic. I just wrote honestly. Something about writing by hand slows you down. It opens your heart. And the responses I received were more touching than I expected. A few people told me they cried when they read my words. Some wrote back. Some simply called to say thank you. Writing letters became a form of healing for me. It brought connection, memory, and meaning. If you've been holding back something in your heart, try putting it on paper. One envelope at a time, you can rebuild something beautiful. Habit 15. I let go of one possession every week. I didn't realize how much clutter I had gathered over the years until I started looking closely. Closets, drawers, shelves, filled with things I didn't use, didn't need, and didn't even remember owning. So, I made a quiet commitment. Each week, I would let go of one item, just one. Sometimes it was a shirt I never wore, sometimes an old book or a kitchen gadget. With every item I gave away, I felt lighter, not just in my home, but in my mind. This habit wasn't about minimalism. It was about clarity. It helped me hold on to what mattered and release what didn't. Over time, my home felt more peaceful. I could breathe deeper. There was less noise, even in the silence. If your space feels heavy or crowded, try this slow approach. One thing a week, one small decision. It's amazing how much space you can create, inside and out. Habit 16. I volunteered 2 hours a week. When I first retired, I felt a strange emptiness. I had more time, but less purpose. I didn't miss the deadlines or meetings, but I missed feeling useful. That's when I decided to start volunteering. Just 2 hours a week. Sometimes at the library, sometimes at a local food bank. It wasn't much, but it made a real difference. For others, and for me. I met new people. I felt appreciated. I felt needed again. Volunteering gave structure to my week and meaning to my days. It reminded me that my time still matters, even if I'm not being paid for it. This habit showed me that purpose doesn't end with retirement. It just changes shape. If you're feeling adrift or unneeded, try giving your time to a cause that touches your heart. You don't need to save the world. Just show up. Someone out there needs exactly what you have to give. Habit 17. I learned to cook. One new meal each month. For years, I stuck to the same recipes. Quick and easy, familiar and forgettable. Cooking felt like a chore. But after retirement, I decided to approach it differently. I gave myself a simple challenge. Learn one new meal each month. Just one. I started with homemade soup. Then I learned how to roast vegetables. Eventually, I tried dishes from other cultures. Some meals turned out great. Some didn't. But everyone taught me something. Cooking became an experience, not a task. I felt more creative, more capable, more connected to what I ate. Sharing a new dish with loved ones brought joy back to the kitchen. This habit reminded me that learning can happen anywhere, even over a cutting board. If you feel stuck in routine, try stepping into the kitchen with curiosity. One new meal a month. That's all it takes to spark something fresh. Habit 18. I talked less and listened more. There was a time when I thought giving advice was the best way to help. I'd jump in with solutions, stories, and opinions, thinking I was being helpful. But then I noticed something. People didn't always need answers. They needed to feel heard. So I began practicing silence. I stopped interrupting. I let people finish their thoughts. I asked questions instead of offering quick advice. Slowly, my conversations changed. They became deeper, more meaningful. My relationships improved. People opened up more. And I realized how much I had been missing by always trying to speak. Listening doesn't mean agreeing. It means making space for someone else's truth. This habit brought more peace into my life than any argument ever did. If you want to strengthen your relationships, try listening a little more. You might hear something that changes everything. Habit 19. I thanked myself for the small things. For most of my life, I was quick to judge myself and slow to appreciate myself. I could list everything I had done wrong, but rarely gave myself credit for what I had done right. That changed when I started a quiet habit. Every night, before bed, I thanked myself for one thing. Some days it was big. I handled a hard conversation well or finished a difficult task. Other days, it was small. I went for a walk, drank enough water, or took time to rest. Whatever it was, I said it out loud or wrote it down. Thank you, self, for showing up today. This simple practice softened the way I saw myself. It helped me become more compassionate toward my own efforts. Over time, I stopped waiting for praise from others and started giving it to myself. If you're hard on yourself, try ending your day with gratitude, not just for life, but for the person living it, you. Habit 20. I gave myself permission to do nothing. There was a time when doing nothing made me feel guilty. I thought I had to be productive to be worthy. Even in retirement, I kept busy cleaning, fixing, organizing, because slowing down felt wrong. But eventually I asked myself, what am I trying to prove? And to whom? So I started practicing the art of doing nothing. I would sit on the porch with a cup of tea and just watch the sky. No phone, no book, no goal, just stillness. At first, it felt uncomfortable, but then it felt like peace. I realized that rest isn't a waste. It's a way of honoring the body and mind. This habit taught me that life doesn't always need to be filled. Sometimes the quietest moments are the most healing. If you struggle to rest, give yourself permission to just be. No guilt, no agenda, just presence. Habit 21. I asked for help without shame. For most of my life, I believed asking for help was a sign of weakness. I thought I had to figure everything out on my own, even when I was struggling. But eventually, life humbled me. A small injury, a confusing piece of paperwork, moments when I simply felt overwhelmed. I realized that asking for help isn't weakness, it's connection. So I started reaching out. I asked my son for help with technology. I asked a neighbor to carry something heavy. I called a friend when I was feeling low. And what I found surprised me. People were glad to help. They didn't see me as a burden. They saw me as someone human. This habit changed my relationships. It made them more open, more honest, and it made me feel less alone. If you've been carrying everything yourself, try letting someone in. Needing support doesn't make you any less strong. It just means you're wise enough to know we're not meant to do life alone. Habit 22. I spoke kindly about aging. There was a time when I joked about getting old. I'd say things like, I'm falling apart, or it's all downhill from here. I thought I was being funny. But over time, I realized I was planting seeds of fear and negativity in my own mind. So I made a change. I stopped using harsh words about aging. Instead, I started saying things like, I'm growing wiser, I've earned the silver hair, or simply, I'm still here, and that's a gift. This shift in language changed the way I felt about myself. It helped me embrace the stage of life I'm in, not as a decline, but as a deepening. I stopped trying to hide my age and started honoring it. Because every year I've lived is a story, a lesson, a survival. If you've been speaking about yourself with sarcasm or shame, try shifting the words. The way you talk about aging shapes how you experience it. Habit 23. I planted something every spring. One spring, I planted tomatoes in the backyard. I wasn't much of a gardener, but I wanted to see if I could grow something from the ground up. Watching those plants sprout, bloom, and bear fruit gave me a quiet kind of hope. It reminded me that life continues to renew itself, even in small spaces. Since then, every spring, I've planted something: flowers, herbs, vegetables, or even just a seed in a pot. The act of planting became a symbol of beginning again. It gave me something to care for, something to look forward to, and something to learn from. When life felt slow or uncertain, those tiny green shoots reminded me that growth is always possible. If you're feeling stuck or tired of the same routines, try planting something. Anything. The simple act of tending to life will gently bring you back to your own. Habit 24. I spent 1 hour a week with no goal at all. We live in a world that loves goals. Every minute must be useful, productive, or going somewhere. But that constant pressure wears on the soul. So I started blocking out 1 hour a week for nothing. No agenda, no checklist. Just time to be. Sometimes I wandered around the neighborhood. Sometimes I sketched badly on a notepad. Sometimes I sat in silence. That hour, once a week, gave me something I didn't know I needed. Freedom. It was a time when I didn't have to perform, achieve, or explain. And ironically, it became one of the most nourishing parts of my week. This habit reminded me that I am more than what I do. I am also someone who can simply be. If your life feels overly scheduled, try giving yourself an hour with no plan. Let your mind rest. Let your heart lead. You might rediscover a part of yourself that you forgot was there. Habit 25. I forgave myself for not starting sooner. This may have been the hardest and most powerful habit of all. For a long time, I lived with regret. I thought about the habits I didn't build earlier, the people I didn't call, the time I didn't protect. I wasted energy on what ifs and should haves. But then one day I said it out loud. I forgive you. I said it to myself, not with judgment, but with love. I forgave myself for being human, for learning slowly, for waiting until I was ready. That forgiveness opened the door to everything else. It allowed me to move forward without the weight of guilt. It gave me permission to live fully now. If you're holding on to regret, I hope you'll consider this habit too. Speak gently to yourself. You're not late. You're right on time for the rest of your life.